Preppers? No, not peppers, preppers. Preppers are simply people who prepare for the future. So what's the big deal about that? We all prepare for the future in some sense or the other. But the kind of preppers that I'm talking about take preparation to a whole new level. Now, with the new coronavirus threat and the fear spreading everywhere, people have begun to prep in some way or the other. But the preppers that I'm talking about are super meticulous people. They acquire supplies, they gain skills that will help them through disasters. And in America, it has become a thing, especially after 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and some market crashes. And there are some conspiracy theories that a doomsday is just around the corner. I want you to watch this segment that was aired on National Geographic Channel 8 years ago.
I am preparing for a worldwide pandemic. Go, 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 go. Before I was prepared for pandemic, I was probably spending 20 hours a day worrying about it. When the pandemic comes, those who are prepared will survive. Those who do not prepare will die.
A pandemic is a virus or disease that infects large numbers of people in multiple countries.
A pandemic can happen in a matter of hours. If someone on one side of the country had the disease and they flew across the country, by the time they get to the other side, people are taking it home, they're taking it to work.
A 2010 study suggests that the risk of disease transmission during transcontinental flights is high, making it possible for one sick person to cause simultaneous outbreaks in multiple geographic locations.
I am most afraid of the flu because it's so common that people don't really take it seriously, and that has killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
The World Health Organization believes that a devastating influenza pandemic is almost inevitable. Even conservative estimates suggest as many as 100 million people worldwide may be infected, and millions will die.
My worst fear is that I would somehow contract the pandemic. We've been outside, so let's make sure that we are clean, okay? And bring it home to my family, and then have one of my family members die. Sorry, that really got me. Now I have to stop.
So Donna has stockpiled thousands of protective masks and gloves in her garage.
I put together kits that have everything you would need to survive a pandemic. In my kits, I have isolation gowns, antiviral tissues, exam gloves, N95 mask, foot covers, heavy-duty sanitizer, goggles, Steramine, antibacterial wipes, and hair covers.
When an influenza pandemic outbreak occurs, the CDC estimates that it could last for up to 8 weeks.
You probably noticed how many times the lady said worry and fear. You know, we are living in a time where there is a lot of fear around us. You probably are up to date with all the news about the coronavirus and how it is spreading and how many people are dying. And it can definitely be a cause for concern. Concern? Yes, it's a good thing to be informed and have the knowledge and be concerned about it. But to be consumed with it, I don't think so. I'm going to tell you my story with fear and how the Lord brought healing to me in this area. Because I'll tell you, fear is a tormenting emotion. It just eats you away. In 2014, we were on a trip to India, and that was my youngest son's first visit to the country. We were there for about 2.5 weeks when this particular incident happened that completely changed the state of my mind for the next 3 to 4 years. You know, I took my kids to my grandparents' place. They're not living anymore, but we have extended family there. And growing up, it was the happiest place on earth for me. Every summer we would go and have a wonderful, happy time with our cousins. It was something we really looked forward to. And in fact, when I was just getting out of the car in front of my grandparents' house, I told my kids, "This is Mommy's Disneyland. This is the happiest place on earth for me." But unfortunately, that trip turned into a very dreadful visit. We were there at the beach that evening with lots of extended family, and there was all kinds of snack going around. And I was gently reminding people not to give my son anything to eat because he shouldn't be having certain nuts and seeds. It was a time of fun and lots of good memories made, and we returned back to my grandparents' place, and my son began complaining of not feeling well. He was sneezing a lot, his face began to change, and he said his tummy was hurting. And he just kept saying, "Mommy, help me feel better." He was only 3 years old and he never had a full-blown allergic reaction up until that point. And there were some instances where he had certain kind of reaction, but not a full-blown reaction. Now, if you're a mom and you're seeing your kid go through something like that, you just want to run in every direction all at the same time and get some help. The problem was, in that small town, there was no one who actually understood what a food allergy meant or how dangerous it can be. And the doctor that was there had no clue of what was going on or what to do. Besides, we were just 2 hours away from getting on a train and going back to my parents' house in Hyderabad. Thankfully, we called our son's pediatrician here in California, and they immediately guided us to use EpiPen, which was a total miracle that we actually had it with us at that moment. And my hands were completely shaking and I could barely hold that injection, but my husband was able to give that shot to him, which helped save his life. One instance like that is enough to change you as a person. And for me, that did it. I had this weak tremble in my knees for days, and in the months that followed, I became so fearful. I was just not fearful regarding my son's health, but I had anxiety just about for everything in life. And why do I keep telling you my traumatic stories? Well, because I really like to visit bad memories and punish myself. No. God has allowed me to go through something in life so I can bring healing and hope to people who have a hard time with anxiety. And in this video, I want to talk to you about the sequential effect of fear on your life. Number one is fear brings resentment. For example, let's take this coronavirus situation, okay? The people who are getting really scared and anxious of the disease inevitably have thoughts like, it's all China's fault that we are all suffering. Or look at what China did to the rest of the world. Because that is how it is with fear. It breeds resentment and anger. I was like that when I was going through those years of anxiety. I had resentment toward the American food industry. I thought the food here was completely genetically modified, and because of that, my son is suffering and it affected his health. I had feelings of bitterness. I was like, why do we have to live in this country? A lot of people want to come and live here, but I was going through a time where I did not enjoy living here because of the fact of what my son had to deal with. I had feelings of bitterness and felt life was unfair. And this is what resentment is, okay? Resentment is any negative emotion towards any person, place, thing, or idea. It does not have to be necessarily towards a person. When we think about resentment, we feel like resentment is towards a person, but resentment really can be towards anything or even an idea or a thought. Number two is resentment leads to restriction. And if your dominating thoughts are always filled with fear, anger, bitterness, and resentment, your mind is in a restrictive mode. Your mind will be in a state where you cannot operate in love, or you cannot think new creative thoughts, or live the life you are called to live. We all have one desire: to live a significant life, making an impact for God. Whoever I spoke to in the recent times have all echoed this. They want to live a meaningful life for God's glory. If you want to make a difference in this world, you cannot be operating in a restrictive mode. You cannot be carrying this load of resentment and unforgiveness and bitterness. Now, I don't know what resentment you may have in your heart. I just gave you 2 examples of coronavirus and resentment towards the Chinese government or the people, and my own example of anxiety and my resentment towards the food industry. But take a moment and think what resentment you need to deal with, who you need to forgive, or where your anger is directed towards. Could this be causing you to have a restriction and you are unable to see a breakthrough in your life? Because if you have a desire to make an impact or do something for the Lord's kingdom, Having fear, resentment, and restriction will definitely not help you. Number 3 is restriction will lead to recession. Now, I know recession is an economic term and it's really not a good time to be talking about it right now, but that's exactly what will happen to us personally if we continue to allow fear to rule or work in our lives. And here's the sequence, okay? Fear leads to resentment, resentment leads to restriction, and restriction leads to recession. In plain English, the meaning of recession is stagnation. And that's why so many times we feel like we are stuck, or we feel like we don't have clarity, that life is not progressing, that there is no growth. And it all could be rooted in fear, resentment, unforgiveness, or bitterness. And it was so amazing that the Lord gave me this revelation one day. He said, if you stay afraid, you will be defeated. And that's how I got the name for my channel, Unafraid and Undefeated. And I want to share with you this verse as we go through this period of uncertainty and concern over this global crisis. This verse reminds us that even in the face of trouble, God is our refuge and strength. Psalm 46 verses 1 through 3 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. I also would like to read verses 10 and 11. Cease striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. In other versions, it says, the Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. You know, we are God's people and have so much hope, not just for this life, but for eternity. You know, our life is beyond this earth. Yes, we need to be careful. We need to be wise. We need to follow all the instructions and precautions. And it is a time for concern, but we are not supposed to be consumed by it. I hope you live and operate in the fact that God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, please hit that red subscribe button. I make videos on intentionally living a victorious life. I will leave a link to download a powerful prayer. It has been a great help to me. I'm hoping it will be a wonderful resource to you as well. And remember, be unafraid and you will become undefeated. I'll see you again next week.